My dear friends, welcome back. It is Dede here. Tonight I want to tell you a story about a mistake. Not a small mistake, but perhaps the most important mistake in the history of medicine. The year was 1928. A Scottish scientist went on holiday and forgot to wash his petri dishes. That small act of carelessness led to the discovery of penicillin, the medicine that has saved over 200 million lives. And, quite possibly, someone you love. So tonight, find your most comfortable position. Pull your blanket close. Let your head settle into the pillow, and let my voice carry you. Once upon a time, there was a man who made a mistake and saved the world. Close your eyes. Take a slow breath in and breathe out. Good. Again. Breathe in and let it go. One more time. Slower now. In and out. Feel the breath leaving your body, and with it, the weight of the day. Notice your shoulders. Are they carrying something still? Let them drop, just a little. Good. Your jaw. Perhaps it has been tight all day without you realizing. Let it soften. Let the space between your teeth open just slightly. There. Your hands. Wherever they are resting, let the fingers uncurl like leaves, opening in the morning light. And now your legs. Feel the weight of them, heavy and warm, sinking into whatever is beneath you. You are supported. You are held. There is nowhere to go tonight. Listen. Rain against glass. Soft, steady, patient. The kind of rain that has been falling since before you were born and will go on long after tonight. The kind of rain that asks nothing of you. Let it hold you now. That sound. Let it be the only thing. There is a room somewhere. Perhaps you can feel it already, taking shape around you. It is a study, old, well used. The kind of room that has been lived in for decades, where things accumulate not out of carelessness, but out of love. The walls are lined with bookshelves, dark oak, going all the way up to the ceiling. And the books, oh, the books, not arranged by color or size or any system a decorator might approve of, but by something else entirely, by memory, by the order in which a life was lived. There are atlases next to poetry collections, natural histories beside novels in 3 languages, a worn copy of something in Turkish, its spine cracked from too much reading, a small wooden bird on the 3rd shelf, carved by someone who is no longer here, but remembered still. In the center of the room, a large writing desk, old oak, scattered with papers and open notebooks and a magnifying glass that catches the light. And on the corner of the desk, a brass lamp, burning amber, warm as a candle, steadier than a flame. The window behind the desk faces the street. But tonight the street is invisible, replaced entirely by rain, and the reflections of the lamp in the wet glass. Two lights, the real one inside, and its ghost outside. Both burning, both watching over you. And on the rug beside the armchair, there is Balim, my old golden friend, already asleep, his great paws tucked beneath his chin, his breathing slow and deep and sure, the way only a dog who has lived a good life can breathe. And in the armchair, the old leather one that has taken the shape of too many evenings, you find me. My name is Dede. I have been waiting for you, not impatiently. There is no impatience here, only the rain and the lamp and Balim breathing, and a story I have been wanting to tell you for some time, a story about a man who made a mistake, a beautiful, magnificent, world-changing mistake. Are you comfortable? Good. Then let us begin. His name was Alexander Fleming, and he was born in 1881 on a farm in Ayrshire, in the southwest of Scotland. If you have never been to that part of Scotland, let me tell you what it looks like. Rolling hills. The color of green you only see in wet climates, deep and saturated, almost unreal, wide skies that change every hour, sun and cloud and rain and sun again, all in the same afternoon. The farm was called Lochfield, and Alexander was the seventh of 8 children, which means he learned early how to observe, how to wait, how to find space in a crowded world. He walked 4 miles to school each day, across the moors. In all weather, and on those walks, he learned to see things, small things, a beetle overwintering beneath a stone, a spider web holding droplets of morning fog, the way mould grew in rings on a piece of bread left too long on the windowsill. He did not yet know that this particular habit, the habit of looking closely, the habit of noticing what others walk past, would one day change the world. He was simply a boy, walking across the moors, in the rain, paying attention. Fleming became a doctor, a good one, quiet and precise, the kind who listens more than he speaks. And then the war came, the First World War, 1914. Fleming was 33 years old. He served as a captain in the Army Medical Corps, working in battlefield hospitals in France. I want you to understand something. The battlefield itself was terrible. We know that. History has told us that 100 times. But what history tells us less is what happened after. A man would survive the battle. He would walk away or be carried away with a wound that seemed manageable, a cut, a graze, something that should have healed. And then the infection would come, silently, inevitably. The wound would redden, then swell, then the fever, and within days, a young man who had survived the shells and the mud and the gas would die in a hospital bed of a bacterial infection. Fleming watched this happen again and again, and he could not stop it. No one could. There was nothing. No medicine that could reach inside the body and fight what was growing there. He treated the wounds as best he could. He cleaned them, He dressed them. He sat with the men who were dying from something a millimeter long, and he made himself a quiet promise that when the war ended, he would find something that could fight back. The war ended in 1918. Fleming returned to London, to a small laboratory on the second floor of St. Mary's Hospital in Paddington. It was not a glamorous laboratory. There were no grand instrument, no team of assistants, no enormous budget, just a bench, a microscope, a collection of glass petri dishes, and a window overlooking a London street that was always grey. Day after day, he grew bacteria in his petri dishes, observed them through his microscope, wrote careful notes in his careful handwriting, and tried things, hundreds of things, that mostly did not work. This is the part of science they rarely show you, not the triumphant moment, but the years before it, the slow accumulation of small failures, each one a lesson, each one a step, even when it does not feel like it. Fleming worked like this for nearly 10 years. 10 years of grey London mornings, of petri dishes, of careful notes, of patience. The same patience he had learned walking across Scottish moors as a boy. It was August 1928, and London was warm for once. The streets smelled of summer dust and horse chestnuts. The sky above Paddington was actually blue. Fleming was tired. Even the most patient man gets tired. And he had been working without a proper break for longer than was sensible. He decided to take a holiday, to go to the country, to rest, before he left the laboratory. He did something he would later call careless, though perhaps the universe had other plans. He left his petri dishes on the bench, not stacked away in the cold cabinet, not cleaned and stored as protocol demanded, simply left in a pile, on the corner of the bench, in the warm August air of a locked and empty laboratory. He closed the door, walked down the corridor, down the stairs, out into the golden afternoon, and did not think about his petri dishes again. 2 weeks passed. The laboratory sat empty. The sun moved across the window each morning, then left. The nights cooled slightly, then warmed again, and on the abandoned bench, in one of the forgotten dishes, something began to grow. Not bacteria, something else. Fleming returned in September, rested, brown from the country sun, ready to work again. He climbed the stairs to his laboratory, hung up his coat, put the kettle on, and turned to the pile of neglected petri dishes on the bench. He began going through them one by one. Most were ruined, contaminated, ready to be washed away and started again. He set them aside, one after another, and then he picked up one particular dish and stopped. He held it up to the window light, the grey London light, coming through the glass, and he looked at what was growing there. A mould had come in from somewhere, blue-green, soft as velvet, growing in a rough circle near one edge of the dish. This was not unusual. Mould contaminated petri dishes regularly, It was a nuisance. It meant starting again. But Fleming did not put the dish down because of what was around the mould. Around the mould, in every direction, for perhaps the width of a fingernail, there was nothing. A circle of silence, a clear zone, where all the bacteria he had been growing and studying for a decade were dead, not crowded out, not merely suppressed, dead, as if the mould had drawn a border around itself, a silent moat, and said to everything beyond it, "You shall not enter here." Fleming stood at the window for a long time. The kettle began to whistle. He did not hear it. He was thinking, not about holidays, not about the stack of dishes still to be cleaned, not about lunch. He was thinking that the bacteria around this mould were dead, and that something must have killed them, and that whatever that something was coming from the mould itself. He was thinking, this is not a ruined experiment. This is the experiment. He called a colleague over, showed him the dish. The colleague looked, nodded, said something like, "Contamination, shame, better start again," and went back to his own bench. Fleming did not go back to his bench. He sat down at the desk, opened his notebook, and began to write. He wrote down exactly what he saw: the mould, its color, its size, the zone of dead bacteria around it, the approximate width of that zone. He sketched the dish from above, a circle with a smaller circle inside it. He photographed the dish. He preserved it carefully, and he named the mould Penicillin notatum, a common mould, one you might find on an old piece of bread or on the skin of an overripe fruit. And he began to ask the question, what is in this mould that kills bacteria? Can I extract it? Can I concentrate it? Can I make it into something a doctor could give to a patient, something that could do inside a body? What he had watched it do in a petri dish. Let me tell you about two other men, Howard Florey, an Australian professor at Oxford, precise, driven, the kind of man who finishes what other people start, and Ernst Chain, a German Jewish biochemist who had fled Nazi Germany with almost nothing, and arrived in Oxford carrying his intelligence and his hunger to work. It was 1938. Europe was moving toward another war, and Florey and Chain were looking for something that could help. Chain found Fleming's old paper from 1929, the one the world had largely ignored. He read it carefully, brought it to Florey, said, "Look at this," and so the work began again. They commandeered every container they could find: bedpans, milk churns, biscuit tins, growing enormous quantities of the mould in a laboratory that looked more like a dairy than a science lab. Their assistants would work through the night, collecting the liquid from beneath the mould, processing it, purifying it, drop by precious drop. In May 1940, they tested it on mice infected with a lethal dose of bacteria. Half the mice received the new substance. Half did not. The next morning, Florey walked into the laboratory at dawn and found that the untreated mice were all dead, and the treated mice were alive, active, perfectly well. He came home for breakfast that morning and told his wife, "It looks like penicillin works." In 7 words, the course of human history had changed, the war had begun, and the need was urgent. Florey flew to America in 1941, carrying samples of the mould sewn into the lining of his coat, just in case the Germans invaded Britain and the laboratory was destroyed. He was carrying the future in his pocket, though he would not have said it quite like that. The Americans had the industrial capacity, the large fermentation tanks, the ability to produce penicillin not in bedpans, but in enormous quantities. By 1944, the year of the D-Day landings, there was enough penicillin to treat every infected Allied soldier, every one of them, doctors who had watched men die of infected wounds in one war. Now, watch those same kinds of wounds heal in days. One of them wrote in his diary, "It was like having a sword against a dragon that had no sword before." In 1945, Alexander Fleming, Howard Florey, and Ernst Chain were awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine. Fleming stood in Stockholm in his good suit, a quiet Scottish man, 64 years old, still somewhat surprised by all the fuss. In his acceptance speech, he said something I want you to hear. He said, "The unprepared mind cannot see the outstretched hand of opportunity." Think about that for a moment. Not the lucky mind, not the brilliant mind, the prepared mind. Years of patient work, years of learning the shapes of bacteria under a microscope, years of knowing exactly what a healthy culture looked like, so that when something different appeared, he could see it. The mould came through the window by chance, but recognizing what it meant, that was not chance. That was a lifetime of preparation. Looking up at exactly the right moment, after the ceremony, someone asked him what it felt like to have saved so many millions of lives. He thought for a moment, then said, "I did not save anyone. The mould did that. I just did not wash it away. I sit here in this old chair with the rain and the lamp and Balim breathing at my feet, and I think about that sentence. I just did not wash it away. There is a lifetime in those words. The greatest gifts often arrive without knocking. They look like interruptions. They look like failures. They look like a petri dish you forgot to wash. I wonder how many petri dishes I have washed away in my own life. How many unexpected things that arrived uninvited, that looked like mistakes, like contaminations, like ruined experiments. Did I stop long enough to hold them up to the light? Did I look? I hope so. Not always, but I hope so. And you, is there something in your life right now that looks like a mistake, or a detour, or a contaminated dish? You do not need to decide tonight. You do not need to solve anything tonight. But perhaps, before you wash it away, you might hold it up to the light. just once, and look. The question is never, did you make a mistake? The question is, did you look closely enough? Before you threw it away, the rain is still falling. Steady, patient. The way rain falls when it has no particular hurry. Balim sighs in his sleep. A long, slow, satisfied sigh. The kind that only happens when every muscle has let go. The lamp burns on. The amber circle on the desk, unchanged. The bookshelves receding into shadow. The room breathing slowly, in and out. Let yourself go deeper now, deeper and deeper and deeper still. There is nothing required of you now, no decision to make, no problem to solve, no dish to examine, no question to hold up to the light. All of that can wait. Tonight, it can all simply wait. Let the rain carry your thoughts, one by one, like leaves released from a branch, turning slowly in the air, and then drifting away, out past the window, into the dark and the rain, gone, deeper and deeper. Feel the weight of your body now, how heavy it has become, how warm, how still. Your feet, heavy, your legs, heavier still, your hips and your back, sinking deeper into the softness beneath you, more and more. The body lets go, more and more. The mind grows quiet, side to side, side to side, side to side, like the rain, moving gently against the glass, side to side, side to side, more and more, deeper and deeper. Somewhere in a laboratory long ago, a petri dish sits on a bench, and something extraordinary is quietly growing, in the silence, in the dark, unseen, waiting. Perhaps something like that is growing in you too. Right now, in the quiet, in the rest, something you cannot yet name, taking the shape it needs to take, in its own time. You do not need to understand it tonight. You do not need to name it tonight. You only need to rest, deeper and deeper. The lamp still burning, Balim still breathing, the rain still falling, and me still here, right beside you. As the night moves slowly past, sleep now, just sleep, sleep. Where rain falls, fires crackle, and stories carry you home.